Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio, here with our international spiritist center here at Kardec Radio. Very good night for all of us. My name is Shane Martin. I'm broadcasting to you from Richmond, Virginia. And today we're going to continue our journey into the book Evolution into Worlds. And I just want to make sure we are connected. And welcome everybody. Today we start part 2 of the book, Chapter 1. So today we're going to talk about nourishment of discarnates. And what a beautiful topic to talk about. So when we talk about nourishment, dear friends, the first thought that comes to mind is, how are you nourishing yourself lately? And not only how, but what kind of nourishment can we obtain, right? So Kardec Radio nourishes your soul. And what about your spiritual and your physical body? How are they being nourished now? So as a reminder, let's go to what we've seen so far, just as a recap. So the book Evolution into Worlds is organized in 2 parts, and look at the amount of topics we have covered. So we have covered so far 20 chapters for part 1 of the book. And today we start part 2. Part 2 also has 20 chapters. So today is day 22. Of this beautiful book by the mediums Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, by the spirit physician André Luiz. So first, before we go to our chapter per se, let's talk a little bit about, see if I can bring myself here too so I can see you as well. So in chapter 2, as a recap, he explained to us the spiritual body, or the evolution of the spiritual body. And in the subtitle, Spiritual Body After Death, he has said, the psychosoma, or spiritual body, is still a body of variable duration according to the emotional equilibrium and level of enlightenment of those who govern it, beyond the physiological vehicle. Okay, and it says, it undergoes a few fundamental transformations after physical death, especially in the gastric center because of the change in the type of nourishment it uses. And that's all he told us back then in chapter 2. So in our gastric vital center, after we die, there are some changes because, of course, we will be unable to take advantage of the food as we know here on the earth. So let's see what kind of nourishment he's going to talk about. In order for him to explain to us what happens to the discarnates, André Luiz kind enough to do a recap on a couple of different body systems. So we're going to talk about the respiratory system and the gastric system today. So he starts. Bearing in mind the importance of respiration for sustaining of the spiritual body, let us recall the arterialization in the physical body. Here, let me see if I can show you more so I can understand. So he's talking about how important it is for us to breathe, to sustain our spiritual body. And when you breathe, as a recap, here's on your right a picture of your nasal cavities. So the air that you inhale goes through your nose to be warmed, goes through the pharynx, the larynx, down to the trachea and into your lungs. And inside your lungs, at the end of the bronchioles, we have the alveoli. And the alveoli is connected to different blood vessels that carry blood from, let me show myself, from the tissues of your body to the lungs, and the exchange of gases that occur in the lungs brings oxygen from the blood in the lungs to your heart, to the rest of the cells to distribute that those substances in your blood. In this case, we're talking about oxygen. So there's just a reminder for us. It's important for us to understand how our anatomy of the physical body is composed. Because remember, the physical body is a reflection of your spiritual body that is under the command of your will. So your spirit's will commands your spiritual body. And if you're incarnated, like you and I, listening to cardiac radio, you have a physical body. If you're one of the discarnate friends who are joining us, because we are always in the company of discarnate friends, they have their spiritual body only, okay? So how are you breathing? More than knowing all of these, how are you breathing right now? So have you thought about breathing? So the beauty of this book, it shows us our pilgrimage from being created as a spiritual principle, the internships of the different kingdoms, and then the evolution into a spirit with continuous thought. And also the beauty of how the systems in your body were built with the help of divine intelligence, of course, under the guidance of the plans of the Creator, is that you don't have to think about breathing. There are parts inside your brain that control your breathing. Most of the time, you don't have to think about breathing. However, you can override those systems and be more mindful about your breathing. As we're going to say, the breathing is important for nourishment or for sustaining your spiritual body. So it brings us to think about how are we breathing and how can we breathe better so we can nourish and sustain our spiritual body better, okay? Remember, it's automatism, sorry. So he goes into, let me see if I can make myself smaller. So he's going to talk about how the exchange of gases and transport occurs, transport of the gases inside the blood to your cells. He says, this is where, in the alveoli, the exchange of gases is securely effected through the alveoli in your lungs, where the gases are carried from the external to the inner environment, from the outside of you to the inner environment of your body, meaning your cells, and vice versa. So you bring in oxygen. Very simplistically, we can also breathe carbon dioxide, but the oxygen is more concentrated in the outside. And then you breathe out the carbon dioxide that is more concentrated in your blood, fulfilling the assimilation or dissimulation of various chemicals activity in the organic field. Okay? So the oxygen that reaches the tissues combines with certain elements, resulting in carbon dioxide and water, along with the production of energy from maintaining the somatic fields. So here is a quick reminder of how the structure of the alveoli is composed. So you have the blood containing less oxygen and much more carbon dioxide arriving into the alveoli, the diffusion of gases, oxygen from the outside in, carbon dioxide from in the inside out, and then now you have the blood rich in oxygen going to leaving your lungs, going into your heart, and then bathing all the cells of the body. And that oxygen will be important because it will be the end product, if you will, of the reactions inside of your cells. So he goes through what we call cellular respiration. So as a organism, you and I breathe. We inhale and exhale. We can control our breathing. We can use mindful breathing to calm ourselves down and use that relaxation response. But our cells also have a process called cellular respirations. And he says, in the area of cellular respiration, Human science encounters questions that can only be solved by the automatic interference of the spiritual body in the functions of the physical body. Okay? Make sure I'm still streaming. Oops. This is because the consequent phenomena are gradated in so many different phases that physiologists with no concept of the spirit will always approach them with the perplexity of the unsolvable. So here's a very schematic view of a cell. That's not how the cells actually look like inside of your body, but just for us to understand for the purpose of education. And guess what? You have trillions of cells in your body that are all under the command of your will. Not only your cells, but guess what? You also have the bacterial cells that live in your skin and your gut. They also undergo similar chemical reactions. The cellular respiration is no more than a cascade of events. So if you remember way back when we studied chemistry in high school or in college, you saw there's a cascade of events. So you start with A, and you add B, and you get C, so on and so forth. At the end of the cascade is where the oxygen is needed. That's one of the reasons why you breathe, to get in that oxygen, to bathe each and every cell. And at the end of the reactions, you need that oxygen. So if you don't have the oxygen, your cells stop doing cellular respiration. The cellular respiration is done inside the mitochondria, which is one organelle of the cells. So here's a schematic of the nucleus, where your genetic material is. Different organelles, and you have materials that keep the cells in their shape. And here is the mitochondria. These red items here that looks like a wiggly worm inside. And this is where the places where your cellular respiration take place. Okay, now he's going to move on. Talked about breathing. Let me bring myself closer to you. He talked about breathing. He talked about how that is important for sustaining our spiritual body. So you and I know right now that we can think about ways where we can breathe better to better nourish that spiritual body. He's going to move on to a different system in our bodies. And that system is what? Is the nourishment of the physical body through digestion. So he says, we know that the sustenance of the physical body requires the continuous exchange of substances with an incessant transformation of energy. Substances and energy are combined to furnish our physical bodies with the necessary resources to grow or to repair its continuous wear and tear, producing the vigor or vitality necessary for life, as well as all the regulatory resources for metabolism. So you and I need those substances to nourish our physical body so we can repair and grow. Okay? What else does he talk about the nourishment of the physical body? Let's see if we can put myself in here as well. He says, ordinary food for the physical body first entails digestion, through which non-diffusible colloidal elements are changed into diffusible crystalloid elements, further changing complex matter into simple matter that can be absorbed. We'll read it through and then we'll break it down together. Don't be scared about all the words. We've went through billions of years of development to be able to do a lot of this automatically without having to think about digestion. So we already know deep inside ourselves how it works. Effort and repetition. The more we study, the more we know, more empowered we are to do better about digestion. This is followed by the circulation of the nutrients capable of being used by the tissues, whether immediately or later, with the residues destined to natural expulsion. So here on the right, if you were to be able to see it, you see through your mouth, you ingest the food, the salivary glands start the process of digestion with some enzymes, which are proteins that do some work. Goes down to your esophagus, through your stomach, all the way through your small intestine, and then through your large intestine, all the way outside of you. And you have the liver. Those are very important for breakdown of different substances. Detoxification is one of its most important functions. Then we have the pancreas and the gallbladder and other items here. But more important than thinking about, do I know the pieces of my digestive system, is thinking about, what are we consuming? Because he's talking about how we have to take in matter and digest it, from complex matter to simpler matter, meaning complex particles to smaller particles that can go from your gut to your blood and then circulate through your blood and reach the cells and be able to nourish the physical cells of the body. Okay? So how are we doing about the things we consume on a daily basis that would help us to have a healthier body? So if you had to think about, how am I doing today? Did I eat well? Did I eat enough? Soon we're going to see that in the discarnate planes, that is going to come of importance. Am I attached to the foods that I eat? Am I eating because I'm bored? Am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? How is our process of digestion and eating? Because you have to eat in order to digest. And also, if we're lucky enough on this planet, when we have the resources, we're going to be eating more than once a day for nourishment of ourselves. And even though this slide has a lot of big words, it's not more than you eat the food is broken down into smaller particles. Those smaller particles go from your gut to your bloodstream, from the bloodstream to the cells, just as the oxygen goes from the outside air into your blood and bathes all the cells and makes sure that we continue to stay in equilibrium, okay? So now he talks about what? Let's move on. Taking a deep breath in, take a deep breath out. And he talks about metabolism and equilibrium. Let me make sure I'm still on here. So he says, earthly science is fully aware that metabolism tends toward constant stability, so much so that the expenditure of oxygen and the fasting glucose levels displays almost no difference from one day to the next. So we know there is homeostasis, which is constant stability. We are constantly, you and I, our bodies constantly adjust to making sure that all the levels of nutrients in our body remain the same. So we don't have imbalances. Okay? And he explains to us something that physical science, material science still doesn't know. Why is that we can have continuous stability? It's because when its own functions are in harmony, whose functions? The spiritual body's functions. They commanding the physical body. It spontaneously corrects all the accidental imbalances in the metabolic processes, and it presides over the reactions in the common nutritional field. So if we are balanced in our spiritual body, remember the spiritual body getting sustenance from the breathing, then we go back and work on our breathing. If we're in balance, if we're doing what we talked yesterday, about not only hygiene of the body and good habits, but also the hygiene of the mind. Because your mind's will acts on your spiritual body, that acts on your physical body. So how harmonious are you today? And it's important for us to keep asking ourselves those questions. How have I done today? How can I do better? Just as a matter of self-knowledge, okay? What else does it tell us about? Okay, so he continues telling us about the nourishment of incarnates still. He says, thus we know from the physical point of view, human beings are being nourished much more through respiration, while the intake of food is only a supplementary resource of pliable and energetic supply for the calories necessary for the body and for the distribution of the units of energy, like glucose, to the various organics departments. Isn't that surprising? That we are being nourished much more through breathing, through cellular respiration, which depends on your breathing of oxygen. So how is your intake of food? Is your intake of food taking over all the other aspects of yourself? So we're constantly thinking or a little bit more concerned, overly concerned about certain types of food? Could we work slowly each and every day to make intake of food supplementary to be nourished in other ways, nourishing our minds and our spiritual body? Could we work on adding better nourishment through our food? Be mindful of how we are eating. Okay? So those are things for us to think about today. So what happens now, it tells us, if we're deeply attached to physical sensations when we discarnate? So if you and I are deeply attached, what happened? If the psychosoma or spiritual body is strongly attached to the physical reactions, the physical sensations, when the physical envelope is abandoned at discarnation, the disturbing need to continue to be yoked to the familiar biological worlds will assail the spirit. What else? Now, read it all and we'll discuss. If the spirit does not overcome its own efforts of self-readjustment, it provokes the phenomena of psychical symbiosis. Remember, we're talking about spiritual symbiosis back then, which leads the perispirit or the spirit to coexist temporarily in the vital aura of those incarnated with whom it attunes. In some cases, even causing an outright obsession process. All right, dear friend, let's break it down. So are you strongly attached to physical sensations? Remember, this book was brought to us for us to understand our pilgrimage from spiritual body, spiritual principle, all the way to being a spirit, and now as a human spirit, of course, a human in the human kingdom, in ascension, loftier ascension to God as a pure spirit. So how strongly attached are you to physical sensations? Because what's going to happen? If you cannot overcome this need to be amongst what is familiar to you, what's going to happen? You're going to be attached to those who are in attunes. So I'm going to give you a silly example. Let's say I am attached to chocolate. Okay? What if I can't, when I die, by the moment of discarnation, I cannot detach from that physical sensation that I need to eat the chocolate. Then I'm going to find incarnate beings that are eating chocolate and like chocolate like I did. Then I will coexist temporarily around them. Now let's reverse. So when you're eating mindfully, just as our visionary Thich Nhat Hanh has taught us, mindful eating. Are we eating mindfully? Where I put down my cell phone, I turn off the TV, I focus on the food, not just for the sake of eating, but of nourishment. I thank all of those who touched the soil and the plants or took care of the animals that gave their lives to be on our plate. So we are thankful for everyone involved in producing the food that arrives to my plate. And I'm also mindful of asking God to bless me with that food as nourishment for my physical body. And also take care of other aspects of nourishing myself, my soul, doing my mental hygiene so I can have a more harmonious spiritual body that in turn will give me a more harmonious physical body. So when you're eating, do you think there's anybody there eating with you? In this discarnate plane, of course, remember, we're never alone. So if we are attached to physical sensations of any sort, they may be there with us. So if we like the physical sensation of some incarnates, like the physical sensation of drinking, rest assured there are discarnate friends with them, also drinking with them. And alcohol and drugs, in that case, are not in any way, shape, or form good for your physical or your spiritual body. So are we being mindful of bringing into our tables after all the work we do to feed ourselves several times a day, good company, so that we can be better nourished and not attuning with those who are within that sensation. So I'd like you to bring you back. Remember, we're trying to not just know, but also apply these teachings. And those are not easy topics to discuss because nobody likes to be told what to do, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm not telling you to all of a sudden go work on your breathing and not eat. That's not what I'm doing. I'm asking you to be mindful of what you're putting in your body today so that when we discarnate, we don't have that disturbing need to be around what's familiar. However, he told us in chapter, if I'm able to change, in chapter 14 about spiritual symbiosis. He said, the symbiosis of minds. He says, the spirit, freed from the physical body, usually discharges the emanation of its spiritual body into the physio-psychosomatic tissues or the spiritual body tissues of those who give it shelter. Remember about the attunement. In a matter of elongated radicals or subtle levers of force. And then that discarnate freed spirit extracts the vitality they develop during the process of biosynthesis, and it often sustains itself for a long, long time in these living exchanges of energy. So again, bringing back the mechanisms through which some discarnate friends may be attuned to incarnate beings due to the fact that they cannot relieve themselves from the shackles of those physical sensations, okay? However, let's say that we find discarnate spirits who are having that attachment and temporarily living around those with whom they attune for the physical sensations. Now, God is just and good. God is not leaving you and I alone to fend for ourselves. We always have help. And then the beauty of Luiz is that he brings to us, what does he bring to us? That in most cases, when discarnates are going through this crisis, they're taken by the agents of divine goodness to aid to centers of re-education in the spirit plane. So once we're open to receive the help, those agents take the discarnate spirits for re-education. And there they receive nourishment similar to that on the earth. Although fluidic, not just the same matter as we have here. And look at how interesting, inadequate proportions. Not too little, not too much, until they can adapt to the sustenance systems of the higher spheres, in whose circles the intake of substance is less frequent and much lighter, depending on the soul's evolution. Okay, so he says, through cutaneous, meaning skin absorption, the spiritual body, due to its extreme porosity, meaning has a lot of holes in it, porous, nourishes itself with the subtle products or chemical electromagnetic synthesis originating from the reservoir of love with which beings sustain one another. All right, that's a lot of food for thought. So let me bring myself back here to see if we can talk about it. So the first part here is that we're never alone, even if we find ourselves in a situation where we are tuned to the incarnate beings after discarnating, living around them because of those physical sensations. Divine goodness will send us agents that will help us on our re-education. Okay? And then we'll receive adequate portions. So today, could I work on adjusting how I breathe, how I eat, what I eat, how I eat, and with whom I eat, and of course, where I eat, right? Not eating, for example, in bars, places where people are having alcohol and drugs. That wouldn't be too good. Could I work on all of these? Of course, because now you know. Then you have the agency of helping your own progress so that when we discarnate, we find ourselves in a better situation. And he says, the intake of substances in the higher realms is less frequent and much lighter. So he's giving us 3 tips here. Adequate proportions. Am I eating enough to nourish myself, or am I eating more than I need? Less frequent and much lighter. Am I telling you to stop eating? No, of course not. We are still incarnate beings in the physical realm. So all of us should follow. We're multi-dimensional beings. We should take a multi-disciplinary or multi-dimensional approach. We should follow the recommendations of physical doctors if you have physicians, medical doctors. If you have any health problems or you have any dietary restrictions, of course. And you should also visit a nutritionist. However, if possible, let's work on adjusting portions, eating less frequently and lighter. So do I need to eat and snack 15 times a day? Probably not. Could I snack less? Could I snack better? Could I eat less? Could I eat better? Because sometimes we're not even aware of the amount that we're putting in our bodies, the quality of the food, of course. And he says here, through the pores in the spiritual body, our spiritual body nourishes itself from what? Look how beautiful this is. From love, from the reservoir of love, which beings sustain one another. So love sustains us. How else? What else he talks about? Let me make it bigger so you can read. On the account, make myself go away so you can read it. On the account of the magnetic projections exchanged among those who love one another, this psychical nourishment process is more important than a nutrition on the earth can imagine, for it gives origin to the ideal organic and mental euphoria of the being. Is he talking about any kind of love? No, the love that we have for one another as brothers and sisters from the same Father who loves us so much. And he talks here, look how beautiful this is. This is why all individuals must give and receive love in order to maintain the overall equilibrium. So I'm making it smaller so we can see this better. So how well are you loving your brothers and sisters in humanity today? Because he just told us, Luiz just told us in 2 different phrases that we nourish our spiritual body by absorbing reservoirs of love, and people who love one another sustain one another. Am I talking about carnal love? No, I'm talking about brotherly love between all of those who are part of the humanity in the physical and in the extra-physical place. So science already knows that if you don't receive love, you're not going to be in equilibrium. If you don't receive love during critical periods during your childhood if you don't receive love while you're a teenager, if you don't receive love as an adult, if you're not loved, you're not going to be overall equilibrium. So can we work today to love people well so we can help on the nourishment of our spiritual bodies? Just a few things for us to think about today. And last but not least, he finished this chapter by saying, nonetheless, when the spiritual body is capable of utilizing only cutaneous absorption to renew its energetic potential, with some measures of a specific substance or simply without it, relies on the process of absorption of the resources that are peculiar to it. It cannot yet dispense of the process of expelling waste through the skin or the normal excretory systems. One must understand, however, that through the harmonious balance of nutritional processes and the etherealization of the absorbed elements, the psychosomatic vehicle does not present certain excesses or the inconveniences involved in the normal elimination of solids in liquids. So, dear friends, this is a short but dense, and I'm going to leave these on the part of love because I love love. So let's recap what we saw today. So today we talked about our physical body's breathing and digestions as means of nourishment for the physical cells. We talked about how the spiritual body undergoes certain changes once it's freed from the physical body in its vital centers. And we end up by talking about how just a few ways why we can eat better, breathe better, and be able to love, must give and receive love in order to maintain our overall equilibrium. And then now I am going to try my best before we end with a beautiful prayer for tonight to read your comments. And you know, of course, we need to read and reread this chapter many, many times, effort and repetition. And part of ascending towards being a pure spirit is having indulgence towards others. So I ask you to be indulgent with me while I work on trying to read your chapter, because one day we're going to get it. We do it long enough, we're going to get it. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for your love and care. I see a lot of thank yous and hearts. Lea Severo, librarian par excellence, says, there's a beautiful chapter in the book No Solar, chapter 18, about the food and the spiritual world. Great, because we need to read and read. Also in the Spirit's book, I believe it's question and answers. It's a dissertation, 257. It talks about different, not specifically about food, but different sensations of spirits when they are in the spirit world as well. Hello, someone is saying that they are talking from Brazil. Can we ask to go to these re-education centers do intelligent sleep? Hi, Teresa Castro. I think so. We can ask for a lot of different things. So when we do intelligent sleep, we're mindfully asking. We're putting our minds in a state where will help us go where we need to go. So we can ask our guardian angels, with the permission of God, of course, to take us to those areas to learn more. So we can learn more about ourselves. We can take courses. We can work on helping our family members through psychotherapy. We can go to the spiritual realm to do psychotherapy. So I don't see why we couldn't go there and learn more about how to help our physical body while we're incarnated. because I'm sure they know much more than we do now. If there are centers of re-education for discarnate spirits, there could be centers of re-education for us as well. So now that we're mindful of how digestion and breathing helps nourish our spiritual body. And why we're talking about the spiritual body? Because when we die, of course not if, it's when we die, because you and I are going to die one day, we will find ourselves with only our spiritual body. So we can ask our mentors to help us so we can progress and know more about ourselves in the spiritual realm. I don't see any more comments, friend. She's asking. That's good, Teresa. I think that we should ask every day to be granted to go there and spend time with the good spirits, right? But it's also important to spend the whole day trying to connect with them. And why do I say trying? It's because, of course, it's easy for me to say here to you, let's give and receive love. But then we are all incarnated on the earth. And then what we have? We have trials, we have challenges. So that is working our spiritual muscle, just like when we go to the gym, to see if we apply this teaching. So we are granted many, many opportunities to apply those teachings that we receive, right? So if I spend time during the day connecting with my guardian angels, asking for inspiration, then I'm more likely to easily go with them to the spiritual realm. And then the series of books of Luiz are excellent resources for us to know of cases where folks did well during the day and were able to help during the sleep, and some who didn't do as well and were unable to help during sleep time because they were more attached. No judgment here, just observations, case studies, because Luiz is a scientist, right? It's case study. So it describes to us, if we're not careful and stay in lower vibrational levels, then we go to areas that are not so happy during our sleep. Then working mindfully to improve those things during this lifetime. And again, we are multidimensional beings. You still have a physical body, so you have to use the resources that we talk about. Yesterday we talked about the complementary role of medicine and religion, right? Medicine taking care of the needs of the physical body, and religion taking care of our soul's needs, our souls and spiritual body ascension towards higher realms. So let's use both to our advantage so we can do this multidisciplinary approach. And then by doing that hygiene of the mind, eating better, we can better ourselves and be of service. Because what is it for? It's for us to be able to do what we came here to do through our revising our reincarnatory plan. So if we have a healthier, because nobody is completely 100% healthy, for a healthier physical body, we're able to co-create with God, do what we came here to do, fulfill our reincarnatory plan, and help others, because we're here to improve through helping others. I see no more comments, but friends, thank you so much for being with me tonight, but don't go yet. So let's take this moment to do a prayer together. So wherever you are in the world, I will ask you, if you can, you're not driving or operating machinery, to close your eyes and take a deep breath in, bringing all of the oxygen from the outside towards your lung. Exhaling all the carbon dioxide accumulated. Be mindful of your presence in this physical body. Thankful for all the teachings that we have received. Dear Lord, we ask you that you bless us each and every day with your kindness and your love. We are deeply thankful for all that we receive. for all the help that we don't even understand. We ask you that you open our eyes, our hearts, and our minds to all that you have to offer us. We ask you that you help each and every being on this planet, in both realms of life, in all kingdoms of life. Please send your guardian angels to all areas of suffering. May all those who suffer know that suffering is temporary. May your blessings be bestowed upon us, and your help be readily available to those who are ready to be healed and to be helped. May you grant us permission to continue these beautiful studies with deepest gratitude to Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, who dedicated their lives to bring those beautiful teachings for us, and for the good spirits who inspire us to study each and every day. Give us strength to undergo our trials. Allow us to put effort and repetition towards being a better human in this lifetime. We ask you for your permission and for your protection to end our studies tonight. And so be it. Dear friends, much love. I'm putting my big face here. Much love and gratitude. Deeply humbled to be with you tonight. And I'll see you again. Let me tell you what you're going to see tomorrow. Tomorrow, if we can get my book together, you're going to talk about the language of discarnates. So, how do they talk amongst themselves when the spirits are in the spiritual realm? And our dear friend Vanessa should be back tomorrow. Soon we'll have other friends. And I will personally be back with you in about a week or so. Okay? Have a blessed night. Thank you for being here. If you have a blessed night, if you're in the United States and other places, a beautiful day if you're elsewhere. Much love. Bye-bye.